This is Season 4 of Southpaw Deep Space Nine. Season 5 will be released on the Southpaw Pod Patreon. This episode was recorded on May 5th, 2024. We are back with Southpaw Deep Space Nine Season 4. If you don't know what SDS9 is, it's Southpaw's completest DS9 watch-along show where we watch every episode, recap it, and analyze it. We are your hosts, Scott and Sam. Scott is someone who's watched DS9 more than once, whereas I'm someone who's casually watched some episodes when it first aired, but this is my first time watching each episode in earnest. One of the cool things about this is that it also gives us different perspectives. After we watch each episode, we come together and talk about it. Scott gives us the play-by-play along with his insights, while I analyze scenes that stuck out for me from a political, philosophical, or media studies perspective. In this episode, we are discussing Little Green Men. Scott, can you tell us about this episode?
Yes, I can. Because this is a fun one. At Quark's, Rom is celebrating Nog going to Starfleet, the first Ferengi to do so, and they're doing this by selling his belongings. You see, when a Ferengi leaves home, they sell all of their things so they have some spending money, even though on Earth they don't use money. Rom, who's feeling wistful, buys his son's pajamas. Worf attends the sale. Basically, Ben has asked everybody to be there. Ben is sponsoring Nog. Ben has a nice relationship with Nog. You see them get to know each other through the past few seasons. It starts off sort of antagonistic, and then Ben realizes that Nog is a sweet guy. Nog is a good guy. Worf is talking to Miles. He's like, I don't know if I need to work on my Michael Dorn impression. Worf questions if Ferengi should even be in the Starfleet, and Miles talks about the contradictory and ironic thing, considering that, Worf was a Klingon in Starfleet and, all of that. And then Worf turns out that he really likes Ferengi tooth sharpening and buys one. Kira notices that she has some stolen goods that she takes back. Jadzia and Bashir decide to buy a weird holosuite program. And then Quark tells Rom to come with him right away to look at a ship that they were given by Quark's cousin. Quark's cousin owed him a ship for a long time, and finally he's got a ship. On the ship, Quark is very worried that it's not going to be a good ship, that it's going to be a lemon. But on the ship, Rom says it is perfect. So now Quark has wheels and he can travel easily. And then Rom is like, well, yeah, you could just travel and retire and I'll own the bar one day. They decide to take Nog to Earth on the ship. Quark is not altruistic. He plans on filling it with contraband to sell. Quark gives the bar to Morn and warns him to keep an eye on Odo and the watchful eye of the thin goo line. Odo questions Quark's motives to do a nicety when he so ardently opposes Nog going to Starfleet. I mean, Quark thinks it's really dumb. Nog and Jake talk about how they did a whole lot of talking about nothing, but all that nothing meant a lot of something. They were the only kids in Deep Space Nine, and they grew up together, and they're going to miss each other. It's quite a nice scene. Miles and Bashir give Nog like a virtual Earth iPad computer book that will make his stay easier and help him understand Earth. And he's like, will it teach me how to talk to Earth, woman? And they're like, it'll help you with a bunch of other stuff. And they say, make us proud, which is a really nice moment. Because again, what's nice about the show and this particular Star Trek is you get to know the characters. So the relationship that Nog has with these guys, you see. So when they say make us proud, it's meaningful. And Jake and Nog, when they say goodbye, it is meaningful. And Quark names his ship Quark's Treasure, and they leave for Earth. And that, understanding the book, Nog is sort of impressed that humans went from simple tools and a barter system and no money to space power in 5,000 years, which was half of what it took the Ferengi, though the Ferengi were more technically advanced in some ways at the time. But, Quark is like, oh, it's stupid. And Quark keeps on saying we need to go faster because he has an illegal deal to make. Rom is onto it, and he says that he could tell that he's selling chemosite, which is some sort of energy liquid science thing. And he's like, I'll turn a blind eye for 20%. See, yeah, my Rom impression is much better. And Nog's like, I'll do 10. Yeah, I'm not going to do Nog. Nog asked for 10%. Basically, this is a thing. Bartering and blackmail and bribery is sort of the love language for these guys. And Rom points out that it's not that he's dumb. He's quite smart. He just lacks confidence. Side note, nobody is dumb. Everybody is smart in different ways. As they approach Earth, Nog is reading about the Bell riots and notes that Bell looks a lot like Ben Sisko. And that is because he is Ben Sisko. But you know that because you've been listening to our show and you remember last season when the Bell riots happened. And if you're listening to the show in 2024, the Bell riots are about to happen, maybe, as we record in 2024. The warp won't stop, and when they get to Earth's orbit, they realize that the ship that was given to Quark, it is a lemon, a jalopy, a failure, and the warp is going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And it's bad and make it weird. And again, there's a lot of words that happen, so I just say science. And Rom is like, well, if I do a certain type of phasing with the warp engine, I can stop the warp and we'll land on Earth manually. And they do a cool thing. Some 90s CGI happens, and they wake up in a strange place. They wake up and they're clearly not in their ship. An army guy smoking a cigarette says, one of the Martians is awake. A calendar of Rita Hayworth reveals it is July of 1947. Remember that date. And maybe it's a nod to Rita Hayworth in Shawshank Redemption, novel by Stephen King. It appears to be a military base, and they are in Roswell. And the military have the ship locked. There was a quote-unquote idiot who reported about an alien landing in Roswell, but the Army media team put that to rest and said that it was a weather balloon.
A note to our listeners. If you love the Southpaw Project, please support us and help us get paid for our labor by financially supporting us on Patreon. This will give you access to exclusive bonus content, like early releases of Southpaw Deep Space Nine, our fictional narrative podcast, Fighters Brew, break-free versions of our shows without interruptions like you're hearing now, bonus articles, Fighters Brew transcripts with extra content, Liberation Martial Arts Online, as well as our private chat group on Discord. You can also make one-time donations at Ko-Fi or show your solidarity by wearing our swag. You can find all pertinent links at southpawpod.com.
The military captain, who is just like hard smoking cigar kind of guy, he wants to know more about these Martians. And so remember, this is 1947. So we're about, in the Star Trek world, about 200 years, give or take. We're over 100 years before universal translators and any of the stuff. So the Ferengi language seems foreign, and the Ferengis don't understand what the humans are saying. And it's 47, so the president is Truman. He asks the team, and then there's a professor who's dating one of the army people present to talk to them, because they may be of service and they might have some stuff, because they are like, if they could get here, they are more advanced scientifically by hundreds of years. So they want to see if they can get some science and tech and learn something from them. And Quark is very upset. And again, it's like, going to Earth was a mistake. Starfleet sucks. This sucks. Rom is worried that they are dead and are either in the good Ferengi afterlife, which is the divine treasury, which is made of pure latinum, or the bad afterlife of Ferengi faith, the vault of eternal restitution. The professor tries to talk to them and try to be like, we mean you no harm, to talking really slow, but they just don't understand. The translators aren't working. And they keep on both doing silly things, clapping, blah, blah, blah. Funny scene. And that's when the Ferengi realize, using this book, it's pretty awesome that Nog was just given this cool Earth book. They realize they've traveled 400 years in the past. Quark is like, oh, snap. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to sell the tech. I'm going to do all the things. The communication isn't going well. The professor is able to figure out that they're probably family, but some sort of energy is stopping them from communication. Possibly nuclear radiation, and that they must be testing something there. And they talk about the primitive nature of 1940s America and how they smoked chemicals and did atom bombs and radiated each other. And comparatively to Ferengi culture, they're like, these are primitive, like, evil animals. Why would you bomb yourself? And the professor and one of the cadets are together, and they are worried. Nog is particularly worried about affecting the timeline. And the professor keeps on asking for more help. He's like, we need more people around, but they won't do it. And President Truman wants answers. They're able to get them to change a frequency so they can turn the translators on. And he introduces himself and tries to make a business proposition. Quark says he's been sent to the world to give super advanced technology, and the army obviously wants weapon technology. And they start talking about money, and he's not interested in paper money. He wants gold. And if the army doesn't give him money, Quark overhears the word Russian, so he will sell to the Russians. Quark orders them that atom bombs and cigarettes are bad ideas. The Ferengis convince them to massage their ears, and they don't understand Earth dogs or really anything from this time. But this is no Earth dog. Guess who followed them into the past? Odo. He followed them the whole time. He's going to arrest Quark. He was so sure that Quark was going to use the chemosite that he followed him, because this is bad, and because plot. And Odo believes that they can use the chemosite and atomic power to get back in time. Quark says, F that. Let's change time. Let's make Ferengi superpower. All we just need, we're going to make this new empire. And Odo's like, no, you're not going to change time. You're not going to be king of the world. We just need 6 hours to fix the ship. The army isn't ready to give the gold and intimate that they're going to torture them for info. And they put bags over their heads and take them to an interrogation area. In the interrogation room, the soldiers give them sodium pentothal, which is what they call truth serum. Supposedly, if you give someone that, they're more likely to tell the truth. They give them 5 shots. It's not working. There's lots of reasons it could not be working, but the whole alien physiology is probably it. And they won't stop calling them Martians. And the Ferengi are aghast at the idea of torturing and military tactics and sort of not respecting the order of things. It's interesting. Nog says there is going to be an attack by the Ferengis because they're all being tortured. And he's like, we're going to attack you. This is why we're here. Rom tells the actual truth. We're from the past and this was an accident. And we're just trying to get out of here. And Quark is like, we're harmless. We just want some money. And the professor and his girlfriend realize the importance of not starting beef with aliens and that they're obviously here by accident, and they release the Ferengis. They break free with the help of Odo, and they're going to use the atom bomb test that is going to happen in the morning to fly back to the timeline. The army captain says, listen, nothing happened. It was just a weather balloon. And it's pretty cool. Odo, Quark, Nog, Rom fly into an atom bomb and go back in time. And Quark calls humans violent savages. And they get back to our timeline, and Odo arrests Quark. And Rom, who we realize is way kinder and smarter than he lets on, will take care of the bar while he's in jail for a few weeks.
So like many Ferengi episodes, this one was fun and also had a lot of biting criticisms about humans, but really the humans they're talking about are Americans and specifically agents of the US. Basically proxies for the US. Like even the Ferengi think it's dangerous and irresponsible to irradiate your own planet and to use nukes so liberally. Who tested the most nukes and dropped it on other countries? The US. There's still after effects of indigenous people, not just in the US, but throughout the world, who have died, and people who are still affected by the aftermath. It's been a genocide for many of these populations. It wasn't just the Japanese affected, and they weren't the only people they dropped this on because they had to test it, and they didn't want to test it where there were a lot of white people living, so they tested it elsewhere. Even if you criticize Earth at this time, you're really criticizing the US because the US is the world's supreme authority, and even more so today. Then you have everyone in the time smoking, and it's not just about the Ferengi thinking the Americans they're dealing with are immoral capitalists for selling poison, but they didn't even get into how they lied about its health consequences and even pretended it was good for you. The Ferengi are the outside observers, and we're getting to see their outside perspective of the US. And the fact the Ferengi think Americans are dangerous bigots coming from them, that's saying something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then the Ferengi assume Americans are reasonable people and offer them food and medicine and technological paradise. And the Americans are like, we're not interested. Give us weapons. The US does all its trades in US dollars. So it's not just nukes and weapons that make them the most powerful. Well, it is, but it's also the US dollar, which is backed and enforced by their weapons and hegemony. And because the world does all this trading in US dollars, and the US trades in US dollars when they're doing trades with anybody. It's the currency they could print more of. So not only is it their currency, it's a currency they control the supply of. So it always gives them the advantage globally. And that means every person in every country is under the hegemony of the US dollar. If you love the Southpaw Project, become one of our financial supporters. It'll help us supplement the cost of running this project, the incredible time and energy we put into it 7 days a week, and you'll be giving us some breathing room, not only to juggle Southpaw with our day jobs, but also to expand Southpaw into other areas. We can't exist without your contributions. Show your Southpaw solidarity by supporting us at southpawpod.com. But with aliens, the dollar means nothing. The US has no advantage. That makes aliens a threat to be conquered. Why would the world's supreme authority ever be charitable to aliens when they always need the advantage in every dealing, which means they can't be the less dominant one? They have to be the one who dominates and has power. US diplomacy is US imperialism. And so a theme, not just of this episode, but of DS9 in general, baseball, root beer, bigotry, and weapons. That sums up US imperialism.
Yep.
The theme of this episode is that the US and its agents are worse than the Ferengi. There's even a mask-off scene where they say there's no human rights when it comes to national security, and that means killing and torturing even a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the Ferengi can't even fathom this kind of torture. There's a line by Nog where he says, "We will kill all your males and take your females to mate with," which he uses to try to scare the Americans, trying to speak their language because he's the expert here. And that's conquest.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about land and resources. It's also about sexually enslaving women, which is a big part of Western colonialism and imperialism to this day. So they loot you, they irradiate you, genocide you, control your laws, overthrow you, and sexually conquer you, and make you their property.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like if it was an episode with Dukat and Garrick going back in time, they probably would not. They would probably be like, oh, yeah, they're doing it right. Torture, yada, yada. This is how you do it. But even the Klingons don't do this sort of thing. It's really interesting when you get the contrast of how a war-torn world in the 40s might act to a bunch of aliens. And using the Ferengi here was super smart. And as a trope, space shows that try to explain Roswell, I always love that sort of thing.
I guess it's a wash because you like that stuff, but you don't like time travel.
I don't like time travel in shows because I don't like undoing things. I want things to be meaningful. There's a show that just came out that's really popular where an episode came out that just destroyed everyone and the main character died. I'm not saying show, I'm not saying the character. And the editors were like, the creators of the show were like, we are not using time travel here. So my problem with time travel, though it can be done well, there are ways in which time travel is cool. I just don't like it often because it cheapens story. That's my only issue.
Well, this one didn't even feel like time travel either.
No, it was just fun. It's just fun. Like, it's cool that, they didn't change time because Roswell had always happened. And it's just that they were the reason for Roswell. And for the listeners under a rock or who have never heard of Roswell, that was a famous supposed UFO sighting in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, where everyone says it's a weather balloon in a army base called Area 51, where people try to go and have parties all the time. It's a thing, in case you didn't know.
One thing this episode confirmed for me is that DS9 has silently reintroduced currency back into the story for the sake of storytelling.
Yes.
Like they were on Earth, but they had to salvage the ship for money to get back to DS9. I think for the writers, it's hard to tell stories of desperation and explaining conflicts without money. Bingo. You can't have exploitation or desperation without money, which is such a theme of the show. So they had to. They didn't want to ruin the canon, but they kind of silently had to because otherwise none of this would make sense. Trade deals wouldn't make sense. Scarcity wouldn't make sense. The seasons have been making more sense because it's just like kind of like a wink wink. Like money's not a thing, but it kind of is on this show. And it's an important thing to talk about because this is why Karl Marx thought we ought to get rid of money, that we shouldn't have money. And that is appropriate because today is Karl Marx's birthday. What an episode to discuss on his birthday. It's the perfect episode for it, just like Ferengi were the perfect ones to be the observers of Americans and America at this time. But really, it's just America, period. And the reason why it didn't feel like a time travel episode was just because that's what it seemed like more of. It was a chance to see America through the eyes of the Ferengi.
Also, yeah, it was just an episode probably where they were low on production money and were like, let's just do an episode in a couple rooms
It felt bigger than that.
because of the scope. But yeah, it was like a 3-room episode.
And then you mentioned earlier Bell riots and talking about perfect timing. We're seeing that now. And in the DS9 canon, did the Bell riots happen in 2024?
Yep.
There you go. So it all comes together.
I'm hoping that we are headed towards a Star Trek future and not a Dune future or a Ready Player One future or a Matrix future or a Terminator future or sorry,
You had to go there.
or a Babylon 5 future. Look, it's not an SDS9 show if I'm not having panic attack about AI taking over. Sorry.
That one every day starts hitting too close to home. But Scott, give me your thoughts about this episode and if any scenes stuck out for you.
So I'm close to rating this episode 5 stars, but I'm not going to. Because you could say it's a non-mythology episode, but in a way, it is a mythology episode for reasons that I'm not going to go into just quite yet. So I'm going to give this episode a 4.5 stars. It is a really great episode. If you were doing a watch through where you didn't watch every episode, this is one of those episodes where you could skip it story wise in some ways, but you shouldn't skip it because it's just fun. It's just a good episode. The acting is great. Seeing the love that has developed for Nog over 4 seasons is palpable. Really seeing what Rom is made of is great. And Quark, of all people, being disgusted by the barbarism of America in 1947 is just ironic and amazing. It's just a great episode. The only thing that I didn't like was Odo being there. I guess he had to be there for plot purposes to get them out, but I thought it was totally unnecessary, and I just loved having a nice Ferengi episode and an episode where we get more of, we get the father-son relationship of Jake and Ben a lot, but we don't get to see Nog and Rom that much. So to see Rom really be proud of his son is just nice.
The other nice touch about this, especially watching it in 2024, is that this episode, Nog does reference the Bell riots. So it really just like kind of brings a lot of things together today. In 2024, on Karl Marx's birthday. Scott, can you tell us about the next episode?
Klingons.
Until then,
Bum, 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 bum.